So everyone is here. Everyone is here. Um, thank you for joining. Welcome to Funding Stories episode number 8. And I'm super thrilled, and I've been waiting to do this interview with Tom George. I think for the past 6 months. I consider him a dear friend. We've known each other for the past year and a half. And what we're going to do today is essentially share the kind of funding stories that Tom George and SaraniaSat had with us. And just a brief introduction on Tom George. A personal friend, had more years in NASA than I think I've been around, like alive. He's been huge on kind of pushing me in picking up my physics game. And it turns out by a shared colleague has also advanced materials kind of background and is now the founder of SaraniaSat. Further ado, I'm super excited and kind of doing this. So I want to kind of start it. I want to start right away. So what made you turn into studying physics and joining NASA?
Well, it was kind of I didn't have much choice. It's kind of like an arranged marriage, so to speak. You don't see the bride till the day of your marriage, and then you fall in love with her afterwards. So basically, our background is that I was born and raised in India, and in those days, in the Indian or Asian culture, you had no choice of career other than becoming an engineer or a doctor, right? If you said you wanted to do a master's in English, they would say, just shut up and write the entrance exam for the national engineering colleges. Thankfully, in this case, I didn't have to be forced to do it. My father was a great inspiration. He was a chemist and an engineer himself, and so many of the stories that he told me inspired me to become an engineer myself. So, and as for working with NASA, I think I was genetically bred to work in a federal research lab because he was the director of a federal research lab. And so I kind of understood the politics, the mechanics of how things work and so on. So it was all predestined for me.
It reminds me of a great joke where a daughter walks up to her father and she tells him, "Hey, Dad, I want to study art." And the father turns back to her and he says, "You can be any type of engineer you want." So, any type of engineer you want. So you want to be an art engineer, go do that. From NASA, let's talk about Cereriasat. Who is Cereriasat? What do you do, and what is the biggest value you're providing?
Right. So SaraniaSat was originally founded to help precision agriculture. And the idea here is to acquire remote sensing imagery using drones, aircraft, satellites, and to be able to analyze that and provide farm management prescriptions, preferably things that the farmer cannot see with his or her own eyes, to provide some early warning on crop stress, and then provide a way for them to mitigate that problem by applying targeted application of fertilizer, pesticides, other crop inputs like irrigation and so on. So that's how we started. Eventually, we migrated to the DoD, but because the same technologies are needed.
Where did the initial funding come from?
So initially, I was very fortunate. Within a month of founding, we got picked up by a large global agricultural company. And I had a lot of fun because we initiated a hyperspectral remote sensing project with them, acquiring both aircraft and drone imagery. And also publication came out of this where we showed, for instance, the early warning aspect of being able to detect crop stress using thermal imaging. So that was a very productive relationship that we had. Unfortunately, though, I became caught I became like a mouse, what do you say that? A mouse that was caught between elephants, because this company ended up acquiring another big, large company, and they froze all their internal R&D projects. And so then I had to scramble very rapidly to find other sources of funding.
So it sounds you moved from kind of your field of expertise in NASA and wanted to transfer those skills to private sector in different fields.
Right, exactly. That was my point, which was to be able to use the technologies that NASA was using and make them more business relevant.
Okay. How did you deal with like the last year of COVID?
It wasn't too bad because being in more of a data analytics type of game where you'd use artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms to process imagery, you really can work from your own home. So I never saw a disruption per se due to COVID because getting the only time was in actually acquiring the data. We had one of our Air Force projects postponed because we could not acquire the data that year due to COVID. But we had to wait a year for it. But thankfully, I was into enough mischief that kept me occupied.
So agriculture applications take some sort of a slower progress. During the scramble, what are the different angles you were able to find and how?
So one of the good things that I was able to do right off the bat from that agricultural project was to take the data and write a large NASA proposal for the first ever hyperspectral thermal imaging satellite. And so this was a combination between my company and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the University of Hawaii. So it was a multi-institutional proposal that we were very fortunate in winning. So that kept me alive. And then I got picked up by an accelerator that was incubating companies specifically for the Air Force. And so I was part of their first cohort, and they set me on the Air Force Small Business Innovative Research Program.
Nice. So what were the biggest challenges after you did kind of the pivot, the transition?
It was to long story short, my whole career has been out of a scene in Monty Python, right? If you've watched the series Monty Python, it's a combination of different skits, and between the skits, John Cleese comes in and with his crisp British voice, he says, "Now for something completely different," right? And so every 5 years in my life, I've been doing something completely different. And it's been like the game of chutes and ladders, where every time you achieve some level of expertise, you slide down the chute again, and you're at the ground level trying to climb up again. In a sense, a rolling stone gathers no moss, so it keeps you young, but at the same time, you look like a complete idiot when you are dealing with peers in that area, till you gather enough expertise to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk. So yes, it was a little painful initially to readjust to the government's sector and to figure out what the government priorities are. And especially in the SBIR world, the problem is that for most companies, including me, the Air Force or the DoD is like a black box. I mean, you don't know who your end customer is when you write your SBIR proposals. And even now, after having won 7 of these things, I still have difficulty, trying to figure out who I should talk to within the Air Force and who would be my customer. So it was quite a steep learning curve, but I had a lot of fun because as I said, I was trained to do that every 5 years. So
it sounds like the federal funding and research funding was kind of your go-to from the beginning, not going through a venture route, not.
Yes. And again, I hope there are no venture capitalists in this audience, but I did do, as with every big. I mean, when I was young and naive, right? I mean, in the sense that during the first year of my company, everybody around me was saying that I need to raise some venture funding in order to keep the company alive and so on. And so I drank the Kool-Aid and I made the rounds of all the venture companies in Silicon Valley and so on and so forth. And you see the gray hairs on my head, right? So I'm I'm kind of long in the tooth, as they say. And here I was talking to 20-year-old gatekeepers who really didn't care whether you were selling satellite remote sensing data analytics or whether you're selling tomatoes. I mean, it was all about deal flow for them, right? And so having gone through that and going through this kind of a little bit of a demeaning experience where you're supposed to do these 5-minute elevator pitches where you in 5 minutes you should condense your business the value prop and be able to explain that to venture capitalists. Of course you can do that, but the thing is that you distill it to a point of meaninglessness, right? And so after having done the rounds, I said, I swore off the whole venture capital deal. I said, first I'm going to prove my business value prop using non-dilutive funding like SBIR or government funding. And then after that, when I'm convinced that there is indeed a business here, then go for venture funding when I'm a little bit more mature than right at the early stage.
So to date, how many awards have you won, and if you can share your experience of the process?
Yeah, so thus far I've won 4 SBIR phase 1s and 3 phase 2s. One of them is a direct to phase 2. And then I've also won these pitch day competitions, so that has been nice. The Air Force, basically, they are all exclusively Air Force, and so the Air Force has been really, really good to me. And EPF has been very good to me because the last couple of them that I won, it was primarily because of my partnership with EPF. I could not have done it otherwise, and so. And I think the key there was that because the Air Force started up the AFWERX program, which none of the other DoD agencies have, the Army, the Navy. I mean, the Army is trying to do something with XTech search, but it's nowhere near as sophisticated as AFWERX is. And the Navy, I don't believe. I mean, I'm unaware of similar programs with the Navy. So it has been exclusively Air Force, and also Air Force open topics is my favorite because there you're judged on the merit of your idea rather than responding to an existing, trying to fit a round peg into a square hole kind of thing, right? Because once the requirements are specified, it's almost too late, and you kind of suspect that there may be an incumbent company that topic has been written for, and so on. So you're kind of the third wheel coming in, trying to tell the Air Force that, hey, look at my solution as well, right? So with those kinds of overhangs and structures that were in place, I had to then. I love the open topics because the open topics was clearly a level playing field that anybody with a good idea could succeed.
So thanks for kind of providing the hook there, but what was it like? What was like working with us? I think we've been working together for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, a year and a half, a little bit more than a year and a half, I think.
So what was like working with us? Well, yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, so you were the guy who first contacted, if I'm not mistaken, and that's how our friendship started. So initially, as with all companies, I was very skeptical because I get this email out of the blue saying, would you like to consider our services and so on. So if I'm not mistaken, I kind of pinged you back saying, hey, could you give me some references that I could talk to and so on and so forth. And the references were all positive, and I then decided to take a leap. Now, the key benefit I was looking at was that this was a probability game. Writing proposals and trying to get funding, right? So in order to increase your odds, you therefore have to submit as many opportunities as possible, and try to put your best foot forward. And as a single person on a small company, I could probably manage maybe 3 or 4 of these. But I think thanks to my collaboration with EPF, I've put in this short span of a year and a half, I think around 24 proposals. I mean, something completely unimaginable that I could never have imagined doing it all on my own. So after having taken the leap, of faith, so to speak, after you reached out to me, I mean, we became such good friends, and right away I had good chemistry. I mean, I knew that this was a good operation because you guys were all very professional, and the best part I liked about the EPF strategy was to assign a single manager or a single point of contact at EPF who could work with the company, right? And I remember this phrase from my brother-in-law who was in the Navy, who said that in a battlefield situation, right? You are not really fighting for the country or the flag or so on. You're fighting for your buddy next to you, and your buddy will fight for you too, because you're watching each other's back. I mean, if you don't do that, you both are doomed, right? And so having this one-on-one partnership with EPF, where it was not only they became a fellow buddy of mine in this whole effort to win proposals, but they became really good friends. I mean, so for example, I had the good fortune to work with Near, and then Shirley most recently, and now because Shirley's leaving, I'll be working with Elon. So I had a fantastic experience. Of course, my threshold for working with them was that they laugh at my jokes, so that was satisfied.
That's caught up. So you've won. You mentioned that you've won Direct to Phase 2 recently. Can you share a little bit about that process? Was it good, bad, anything you liked there? And then what were next steps? Because I know there were some things that we were trying to do and boost additional efforts outside of grant writing.
Right, and so now I have, so you mean about the Deep Tech Showcase part of it?
Yeah.
Or yeah. So yes, and so now that I've got some experience under my belt with the CIBER Phase 2s that I've completed, I think I'm now ready to move into working with investment and venture capitalists. I think I have my overall roadmap and where I'm headed, and also the business plan and the value prop really clearly defined. And so I think Deep Tech Showcase came in at just the right juncture, where they approached me, and I jumped. I mean, because they were part of EPF, I jumped right away without any questions, no references, and nothing. I mean, you guys had a full reputation already with me, so I was very happy to join with Deep Tech, and the guys there are extremely professional. So I had a wonderful time getting the pitch all settled, and then I got exposure to a bunch of investors, potential stakeholders, and so on. So that was a great experience. So I think I have no complaints. I mean, I think in terms of the order in which it was done, it was perfectly orchestrated.
So most companies try to get funding, and then they'll go on non-dilutive funding or working with the government. You had the opposite route. What was it like speaking with investors and stakeholders after you already have a phase 2?
Right, and so I think the advantage to the Deep Tech Showcase was that the people who were in the audience at Deep Tech Showcase were already interested people. So I was not talking to a bunch of, I would say, not uninterested, but kids who really didn't understand the space very well, and whose job was to screen the deals so that they could then pass that information on to the partners, right? And so instead of that, I was actually talking to CEOs and partners at investor firms. So I had their ears at the presentation directly, so that they could understand what the value prop was. And that was very valuable, because nobody was wasting their time. I mean, I wasn't wasting my time. They were not wasting their time, because they wanted to hear what the message was. And so, as with everything else, it will take time for this to bubble up and create some wonderful investment opportunities. So I'm optimistic. I've had a number of valuable interactions that I would not have had otherwise. So I think I am very thankful to EPF and Deep Tech to provide me that opportunity.
So what do you see? What do you see for you, for Tom, as a Rolling Stone? What do you see the next steps in the future for SaraniaSat? Well, how are you trying to plan the next 2 or 3 years?
So all of my work has been to put together the building blocks for my ultimate vision of having a persistent global constellation of satellites acquiring high resolution, hyperspectral, scientific grade hyperspectral imagery on a daily basis that can benefit multiple business verticals. So that's the grand challenge that I'm headed out to. So I think EPF has been critical in helping me build the various building blocks. I mean, so we're slowly building up the walls of the cathedral, so to speak. So yeah, so without EPF, I would not have been able to move as quickly.
Do you have an immediate next steps that you're planning on as a part of the tactics or strategy?
So I'm pursuing both. Now my tactic has changed slightly, where it's not just non-dilutive funding that I'm going after. I'm going after both non-dilutive and investment funding, right?
Okay.
And that seems to be a natural transition for all small business companies, because the Air Force, as you know, has a program called the TAC-5 program and the Strat-5 program. So my next target is to approach that with a good investment partner on my side, with help from EPF and Deep Tech Showcase, so that I could then, increase the level of funding, go to the next level, so to speak, in terms of creating this value prop.
So I'm curious, what would you tell companies that are now just starting the process or thinking of doing non-dilutive funding or working with the government?
I think it's always challenging, right? There are no guarantees in this business, right? But I think having EPF in your corner is a huge plus. So I mean, I'm not just saying that facetiously.
We're not paying Tom, I promise.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
It's not sponsored.
You have never paid me for saying this, but and I'm not trying to flatter you. It's reality that without that I would not have had the leverage, because as a small entity you cannot afford a full-time business development person, and even if you did, a single person alone does not have all the breadth of experience and the skill sets that are needed to bring everything to the table, right? So from that purpose, I think the partnership with EPF has been extremely valuable. So as I said, I will now, my single-pronged strategy has now changed into 2 prongs, both dilutive and non-dilutive. I will continue my non-dilutive efforts to build up the little bricks that make up the foundation, while the non-dilutive funding will be used for the huge push towards achieving the final vision.
Yeah. I'm interested, like, is SaraniaSat expanding the amount of employees now hired, or you're still saying are you still in? If I can ask about that.
Sure. So I have consciously not hired too many employees. In fact, SaraniaSat grew by 100% in 2020 from a single person to 2 people now. So we are 2 people, right? And you, as a parent, you should realize this, that being a company CEO is like being a parent, right? And so you are responsible for your employees. And the least you can do is, when you get the loyalty of your employees, you have to be loyal to them by providing them security, financial security, and also making sure that you will be supporting them for the long haul, right? So with that, I have been, as they say, slow to hire, hopefully not quick to fire yet, but but slow to hire, but because I want to make sure that I have at least a 2-year runway of funding to provide them with some stability and constancy so that they don't have that hanging on their head that they could be laid off tomorrow, right? Because the company runs out of funds. But at the same time, produce innovative new products, right, for our customers. And so that's been my strategy. I have intentionally kept this company small and leveraged our small size by having partnerships, external partnerships with many different organizations.
Amazing. Before we wrap things up, I'm wondering if you have any final words, thoughts, anything you'd like to share with the audience or the billions of people who are going to watch this interview.
I'm sure this will go viral on YouTube. No, I think like I said, I am not being facetious when I said that I have truly enjoyed my partnership with EPF, and I would strongly recommend any small company that is considering it to, I'm happy, as you know, you have been happy to talk and refer, be a reference for you. So I think you guys have a good thing going. I mean, you are very professional and you are very caring about the fate of your clients, right? I mean, you have their success at your heart, which is key, because if you just treat them like any other client, right? I mean, that this relationship would never have existed. And so so the depth of support and understanding and the commitment to make your clients succeed, I think is the best thing that you guys have going for you. And I think you should keep that up, despite all the different. I mean, of course, it will never be a smooth road. It will always be rocky. And I have one piece of advice for companies wanting to work with. And maybe that has been my secret of success with EPF. So I said, I've been a manager at NASA long enough, working with people, right? And so to realize one very important lesson, which was that whenever I'm introduced to a new EPF point of contact, my first job is to set them at ease with two things. Of course, to laugh at my jokes is one condition, but the second one is to tell them that if anything goes wrong with our relationship, it is my fault, not yours. Okay, so so that if there is a problem, if we screw up a proposal, if we don't win an opportunity, and so on and so forth, I will never point a finger at you guys. But what I do want to do is to learn the lessons. And so don't be afraid to tell me the bad news or along with the good news, right? And especially if I'm screwing up, because for me, failure has been the best teacher as opposed to success, because through each failure is what I've learned much, much more than I've ever learned with any of my successes. So I don't want the point of contact at EPF, my counterpart, to ever feel afraid that I will ever point a finger at them and accuse them if something screws up. And things will screw up. I mean, as with marriages and so on, there, things get rocky. But in order to sustain them, you take the blame on yourself, and then that way at least they will become open.
That's a good advice. I hope my wife isn't watching this. No, I'm joking. Actually, that's a great advice. I really appreciate it. Over time, we try to speak with, I know I'm biased, but we try to build a long-term relationship with clients. So the longer we work together, the higher kind of value we can give and higher funds.
Absolutely.
But, so I think I've asked all the questions that I've had. And again, it's great finally seeing you like kind of meeting again. And that's it for the folks who's listening and the billions listening to this afterwards. Tom, really, I think every single person in the company at Eagle Point knows who Tom George is and Saraniasat. So it's been an amazing partnership, and really, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
I agree. Thank you very much, Yuval. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Tom. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.